Last week, we fixed the top 10 college offenses in EA Sports College Football 26 with my new top 10 list. And now I am going over EA Sports top 10 defenses and bringing you my new list that will once again obviously be way better. Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video and comment down below your top 10 defenses for this upcoming season. And let's get into this list, starting with the teams that just missed the cut. Texas Tech being the first team who EA has ranked 9th. And while I do think they've improved massively as a unit, especially up front with additions like David Bailey and Lee Hunter, they just have too much ground to make up from last season, where they averaged 6.4 yards allowed per play, which was around 115th in the country. That's just not going to do it for me, and that's ultimately why I'm leaving them off this list. And the second team that barely missed my top 10 is the LSU Tigers, who EA has ranked 8th. They've also had some great additions on that side of the ball, especially in the secondary, which was a huge weakness for this team last year. And while I do believe that defensive coordinator Blake Baker and this unit can scrape the top 25 this year, I'm just not convinced they're a top 10 unit, seeing as they're around 80th in yards allowed per play last season. And with that out of the way, let's jump into our top 10, starting with the Ohio State Buckeyes, who EA has ranked 5th, which is a slight downgrade from last season where I had them ranked number 1 overall before the season. And sure enough, that's where they finished, but they do lose a ton of production from last season. 7 total starters from that unit are gone, but they do return a solid group of guys, especially in the secondary, who look like the strongest group in this unit. But they do have a small overhaul in the front 7, and they will be under a new regime on defense as well this season, which is why they're ranked 10th on my list. And next at 9, I have the Tennessee Volunteers, who EA has all the way down at 13th. This unit is insanely underrated this year. I do think that Jermod McCoy injury brings that unit down a good bit, but overall this unit is still very deep and talented, especially in the front 7. And while they do lose an elite pass rusher in James Pierce Jr. to the NFL, they are not shy of talent in the edge rushing department. And they also portal in solid depth in that secondary to balance out the potential loss of Jermod McCoy this season. So while this unit is also a bit below where I had them last year, they're still borderline elite overall. And at 8, we have the Georgia Bulldogs, who EA has at 4th. And while they do return an elite secondary this year, I'm just not confident in that interior front 7. Last year, they ranked 35th in yards allowed per rush attempt, and the departures in that area do not help their case at all. However, this secondary and the coaching staff will do their best, which is obviously very, very good. And that's why they're still in my top 10, just probably not as high as most people, including EA. And next at 7, we have the Michigan Wolverines, who EA has one spot higher at number 6, and who I am very high on this year. Last season ranked 12th nationally in yards allowed per play, even with one of the worst offenses to complement that defense in the Power 4. And while they do lose what was the heart of that defense in the interior defensive line, the additions they've made are at the very least serviceable replacements, if not elite talents. They return a few solid pass rushers as well. The secondary should be borderline elite once again this year. And with the offense most likely not being completely inept this year, I think that will also lend to this unit's favor. And next at 6, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who EA has down at 11th. And much like the last few teams on this list, Notre Dame does lose a solid chunk of production, especially with losing Riley Mills in the middle of that D-line, as well as Xavier Watts and Benjamin Morrison in the secondary. But what gives me a ton of optimism for this unit is the returning production on this side. They still have some young studs in this unit, like Leonard Moore in that secondary, but Marcus Freeman and his staff do bring in some great rotational pieces as well through the portal on the defensive line, and they're not short of talent there either, so I don't think there will be that big of a drop off for this unit for this upcoming season. And after the Irish, let's look at number 5, the Penn State Nittany Lions, who EA has ranked 3rd. Now, I'm not as high on the Nittany Lions as EA is, obviously, but this is a unit who will be led by Jim Knowles this year, former Ohio State defensive coordinator. And I like Tom Allen in this role for them last season, but Knowles is almost in a league of his own defensively, and he's going to be working with what should be an elite front seven once again this year. Danny Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, and Tony Rojas return from last year's squad. They bring in elite transfer linebacker Amari Campbell from North Carolina to add another elite presence off the edge. And on top of that, the secondary is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. This unit is very solid all around. No glaring weaknesses to be reported on, which is why I have them inside the top 5. And at 4, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide, who EA has listed at number 1. And this is yet another front 7 who is absolutely menacing. LT Overton, Tim Keenan, Justin Jefferson, and Deontay Lawson are all contributors returning on that front. And they bring in insane talent from the portal like Nakai Hill-Green from Colorado and Kelby Collins from Florida. And like Penn State, the Crimson Tide secondary is nothing to sneeze at and is probably a bit better in my eyes. A lot of production returns from last year's squad, and where they may lack a bit of depth in that room, they absolutely more than make up for in talent alone. I have them at 4, a little bit below where EA did, but still an elite unit this year. And coming in at 3, we have the Oregon Ducks, who EA have listed at 7th, which I just do not understand at all. They return one of the most dominant fronts in the Big Ten from last year, including edge rusher Mateo Uiagalelei. And on top of that, they bring in multiple elite portal players from this cycle, including tackle Bear Alexander, who will be a big contributor in that interior defensive line. Defensive backs Dylan Tieneman, Theron Johnson, and Jaden Kennedy, who return a combined 132 solo tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 29 pass defenses, and 2 interceptions by themselves. This group is absolutely one of the most talented in the sport, and it's honestly a bit disrespectful EA has them so low. I've got them at number 3, and at number 2, let's look at the Clemson Tigers, who EA also seems to like to disrespect because they have them all the way at number 10, which I also just don't understand at all. This is easily one of the strongest units all around in the country. They have premier talent at every phase. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, and now Will Helt on that defensive line, Sammy Brown and Wade Woodaz at what should be their starting linebackers, and Avion Terrell and Khalil Barnes as their top 2 returning defensive backs. This one is truly mind-boggling to me. I think this team should easily be in the top 3 this season, especially with bringing in Tom Allen as their defensive coordinator. He led the Nittany Lions to a top 10 finish last year. Should be able to do something similar here. And with that, let's look at my top spot, which belongs again to the Texas Longhorns, who EA has ranked 2nd, and who is also atop my best offenses list as well. I'm very high on Texas, if you could not tell. They have 2 of the best defenders in the country returning this year with Colin Sillins and Anthony Hill Jr. They had concerns in the interior line before bringing in Hero Canoe, Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, and Murad Watson to fill in those gaps, who all should be more than capable of playing well this season. And on top of that, they return key producers in the back 7 like Trey Moore, Leona Lafau, and Arkansas's Brad Spence at linebacker, as well as defensive backs Malik Muhammad, Michael Taffy, and Jalen Gilbo from last year's squad. If there is a weakness on this unit, it's probably the secondary, but I do not hold that opinion at all. They might be a little bit worse than the front 7, but the front 7 is elite. I think the secondary is near elite, if not elite themselves as well. And I think this is still a very strong area on an insanely strong Texas defense, and that is why they're topping my list at number 1. And with that, thank you for watching. As always, be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below your top 10 defenses and what team you're using in College Football 26, and we will see you in the next one.